Ford Grigg, Cardinal Financial.
Yes.
Good friend. A couple days before Thanksgiving, you're visiting us today in our Spring Lake office. And knowing how chaotic and frantic the market is right now, we are definitely seeing buyers a bit fatigued.
Yes.
So what advice can you provide and or share, not only with our agents, but with our clients, to best prepare them for making a purchase in our current environment?
Well, Keith, it's a very, very important process that has to take place in the early stages of anyone looking at a house. Aside from getting pre-approved properly, putting all the documentation into your loan officer, having them vet everything and make sure that all your ducks are in a row with respect to income, assets, credit, etc. When that time comes and you, the agent, find a property for your customer, what we try and do to help them prepare even more so than anybody else that would potentially and almost definitely be competing against is we have a purchase scenario form that we use. So, for example, if a client's looking at buying a $500,000 house and they know that the house has been on the market for a little while or maybe it needs a little work, they might want to go in a little bit lower in price, and let's just say, for argument's sake, it's $450,000.
Mm-hmm.
We have a single sheet that gives you three different perspectives: 450, 475, and say 500. We can make the numbers for whatever they want. But the idea is to show the borrower the difference between having to go from 450 to say 25,000 higher to say another 25,000 higher. So it takes the questions away with regards to any potential counter, which in almost all likelihood they're going to see some sort of counter. So if I'm the borrower and I'm concerned about whether or not going up 50,000 actually cost me another 20 or 50,000 out of my pocket, they can see on the spreadsheet that it's actually not, it's a percentage of the amount financed and the monthly payment is only incremental change, which puts a lot of concerns at bay.
I think what's beneficial to that is they get to see it prior to engaging, if you will. One of the things that we are consistently trying to do, and our team does an extraordinary job of, is establish a realistic expectation. Whether we're working with buyers or sellers, specifically with buyers in this market, that, hey, listen, chances are you're gonna have to be aggressive. And you should know your pain points and your comfort points prior to getting engaged. We're seeing multiple bids, we're seeing escalation clauses, we're seeing a lot of cash competition out there. I think it's imperative that they get that information in advance.
It can be information overload for any buyer. I mean, the home purchase process is extremely overwhelming. So our job as a lender is to make sure that we're getting these clients as informed and as educated as we possibly can through that process early on, so that when the time comes, they are not hesitating about making a move one way or the other, because that could be the difference between getting your dream house or losing your dream house.
A lot of people are struggling with the whole aspect of having a financing contingency. If I'm a seller, if I've got a cash offer in front of me and I've got an offer with someone who's obtaining financing, chances are my listing agent is going to encourage, and others, attorney, etc., may potentially be encouraging me to go the all cash route, because sometimes they see that extra contingency as just yet another round of negotiations, fearing that the appraisal may not come in at the right number, if they have to go over. Thoughts? Because I know you guys have a pretty extensive appraisal network of localized pros and or appraisers, I should say.
We do, and in a lot of cases too, it's not always on the buyer side that we're getting the inquiries from. It could be from the listing sides as well, because many of the agents that we work with that present buyers are also selling homes as well. So as a service to help them better educate their sellers and identify maybe what might be the better offer to take on the table, we will step in and help out with regards to trying to get some kind of feeling as to whether or not the mortgage offer with an appraisal contingency is going to work or not, based upon the presentation of the price through things like our appraisal network.
Being a buyer's agent in today's market, as we all know, is incredibly difficult. The competition is real.
Yes.
And as I said, there's a lot of our buyers are competing with cash. However, a lot of our buyers that go into a transaction as cash, after demonstrating that they have proof of funds, they then go and obtain financing. So let's talk about, because I know you have a very, very strong support network, let's talk a little bit about, hey, I've got a 30-day window here or a 45-day window that I'm supposed to get this thing closed. Now my buyers decide they want to go take advantage of some of these incredibly low rates. Are you going to hold us up, or are you going to get us to the finish line? I think I know the answer.
So many people in a cash buying position are getting told by a lot of their financial planners, hey, listen, it will probably cost you more to liquidate that money out of these investment portfolios and putting it into equity into the house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the chicken or the egg with respect to, do I go cash but then liquidate the financing, or do I go cash and then try and get the financing after? We are quick to identify with the client pre-contract as to whether or not that's in the works or not with a game plan for how they want to purchase the house. If that is the case, where they want to present cash but ultimately want to obtain financing, they are made fully aware of all the risks that apply with regards to representing a no contingency offer. Ultimately, if they are comfortable with that, then we will go the next step, get all their information, use the actual property information, and have that file underwritten and approved so that they can have the peace of mind knowing that they're going to be able to meet a close date. Now, the difference with Cardinal, as in most places, I've developed a team over a long, long period of time where we have an encapsulated operations group.
Mm-hmm.
I have my own dedicated underwriting staff, my own dedicated closing staff, my own dedicated processing staff, my own dedicated office manager. That translates into a loan that can come in the system. Your client goes into contract on Thursday afternoon. That file is now in that, or that application rather, is in that client's email the same day. They e-sign that application with all their disclosures that night. That file's in underwriting on Friday afternoon, and I have an approval by Monday.
So it's interesting. We have heard horror stories, as you very well know, of others that have made a change prior to the closing package getting to the closing department, and now all of a sudden everything comes to a full stop. It's full stop because of the 3-day period of time where nothing can change, that sort of thing. I'm a listing agent, and I have you and your team on the other side working with a buyer. Are you accessible to me if I have a question about a borrower? Obviously not to disclose confidential information, but to me, accessibility and transparency is the key.
7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Good.
Yeah. We're a service. We are a partner. We are trying to be able to create, in conjunction with all the parties involved in a real estate transaction, just a better experience for the customer. So that all manifests itself in different ways throughout the process. And many of those ways are by being accessible to counterparties. If they have questions, my client really loves this offer, but are you sure you can close it in 20 days? Yes, this guy's done. He's already been underwritten. I have my own team. I can close it in 10 days. I could close it sooner, but the government wouldn't let me close it any sooner. So.
I think a lot of people don't understand, and Anita and I were talking this morning about that 3-day period of time. So, you know, our team, we're privileged to work with the best of the best. Our agents here, as you very well know, and yes, I'm biased, are the best in the market. However, sometimes we need to educate others in the market, in the co-broke community. So having that level of accessibility is critically important. My last question, and I know we're running out of time, is for our seller clients. You know, inventory is tight. However, inventory, if positioned properly in the market, moves quickly. And ultimately, true market value is determined by exposing a property to the open market and letting the buyers come to it. But I'm a seller in this example, and I know I could sell my home for top dollar, but I don't necessarily know where I want to go. I'm sitting on piles of equity, yet maybe I would like to talk to someone about tapping into some of this equity without having to sell my house to either make another purchase, to make an investment, to help my kids buy something, that sort of thing. Could you take 10 seconds and speak to our seller clients?
Absolutely. So equity is definitely a big piece of the puzzle with respect to existing homeowners and what they do with that theoretical money. There's a lot of different scenarios that come up. If it's a scenario where a buyer or a seller is thinking about, well, how do I leverage this in order to buy a new property, but not necessarily make it contingent, or how do I access those funds prior to putting my house on the market and then ultimately giving myself the opportunity to buy another place, or how do I liquidate some of those funds to turn around and use in other investment vehicles? All those things come into play, and they're all different scenarios. But I can tell you that what we typically do when working with a lot of sellers who are interested in buying a new place, but they're just not sure how they're going to handle the contingency, knowing that a contingent offer is just really not going to be accepted when they're putting that in. We'll come up with unique structuring scenarios where we can create a loan and bifurcate it into a first piece that is equivalent to what we think they would ultimately have taken out if they had the equity from the property in place at first, and then put a second mortgage on there in conjunction with it. So ultimately, when they do sell that property and that equity comes due, they can just pay off the second one without having to retool anything, and then just leave the existing loan in place. We are able to structure loans where they're able to go minimal percent down on the new property, and in most cases, a lot of the buyers are able to maintain potentially 2 mortgages from a qualification standpoint.
Right.
But they typically don't have to make a payment on 2 mortgages.
They're just bridging that gap.
They're just bridging that gap.
Right.
And in a competitive market, what we're doing is basically just creating the options and just opening up different case scenarios, because there isn't a right or wrong answer. It's just what's best for the client.
We find ourselves doing a lot of educating in the market that we're in today for both buyers and
It's the most
sellers.
important thing we can do.
You know, many are under the mindset that in order for me to buy, I've got to sell first. And for some, that's just their chosen route, and that's all well and good. But as we start building our inventory in anticipation of what's hard to believe that we're talking about a spring market 2 days before Thanksgiving, we do feel a wave of inventory coming, so we want to best prepare our team. So I can't thank you enough for your time today. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Jen, and the kids. Thanks for coming by, man.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you.